You're mine, forever, Emily whispered as she took Jake's hand at their wedding. But one night she threw in his face, "Where I'm going is none of your business," and slammed the door. She thought she had everything under control, but Jake was already preparing a plan that would shatter her world. What would you do if the person you love betrayed you like that? Share your thoughts in the comments. Jake Garcia leaned back in his office chair, the faint hum of Miami's evening traffic filtering through the open window. At 35, he'd built a solid life as an architect, his designs shaping the city's skyline. His wife, Emily, 32, ran a thriving fitness studio, a dream he'd helped fund with late-night talks and early-morning coffee runs. Their marriage, once a spark of late-night laughter and shared ambition, had seemed unbreakable. But tonight, something felt off, like a blueprint with a hidden flaw. Emily stood by the front door, her movements sharp and deliberate, slipping her phone into her purse. Jake's question came softly, almost casual, as he set his laptop aside. Heading out somewhere special? Her pause was brief, her eyes flicking toward him with a glint he didn't recognize. "Where I go isn't your concern," she said, her voice slicing through the air like a draft. The door slammed behind her, the sound echoing in their Coconut Grove home. Jake sat still, the weight of her words settling in his chest. She'd never spoken to him like that, not in 10 years of marriage. The woman who once stayed up planning their future, who kissed him goodnight even after arguments, had just dismissed him like a stranger. He reached for his phone, his thumb hovering over her contact. No call, no text, just silence. His mind raced, piecing together the last few months, her late nights, vague excuses, the new perfume she wore that wasn't for him. He scrolled through his contacts, stopping at a name he hadn't used in years, Ricardo Mendez, private investigator. 2 years back, at a Miami Chamber of Commerce gala, Ricardo had handed Jake his card over drinks, his voice low and knowing. "Trouble finds everyone eventually," he'd said with a wry smile. Jake had kept the card, tucked in his wallet, more out of habit than intent. Now it felt like a lifeline. He dialed. "Ricardo Mendez," came the crisp reply. "Jake Garcia," he said, steadying his voice. "We met at the gala a couple years ago. You gave me your card." A pause, then a chuckle. "I remember. What's up, Jake?" He gripped the phone tighter, staring at the door Emily had stormed through. "I need you to follow my wife. Tonight. I want to know where she goes, who she's with, everything." Ricardo's tone stayed even, professional. "Send me her photo, phone number, and any details you've got. I'm on it." Jake hung up, his pulse steady but his thoughts sharp. He opened his phone's gallery, found a recent photo of Emily, her smile bright at a friend's barbecue, and sent it to Ricardo. Then he added her number and the make of her car, a sleek black Audi she'd insisted on leasing last year. He didn't know what he expected, but the act of sending the message felt like drawing a line he couldn't uncross. He stood, pacing the living room, the weight of the night pressing in. Memories flickered, Emily laughing as they danced at their wedding, her hand in his during a stormy night when the power went out, promising they'd face anything together. But those promises felt distant now, eroded by her late returns and guarded glances. Tonight wasn't about suspicion anymore. It was about clarity. His phone buzzed an hour later. Ricardo's text was brief. "Got her. She's at Ocean Grill, downtown. Not alone. We'll update." Jake's stomach tightened, but he didn't reply. He sat back down, staring at the ceiling, the hum of the city outside a faint reminder of life moving on. Ocean Grill wasn't a place they'd ever gone together. It was upscale, the kind of spot where deals were sealed over champagne. Who was she meeting? Another buzz. A photo loaded slowly on his screen. Emily, leaning across a candlelit table, her hand brushing the arm of a man with slicked back hair and a tailored suit. Jake zoomed in, his jaw clenching. The man was older, maybe mid-40s, with the polished ease of someone who never checked a price tag. Ricardo's next message followed. "They're leaving. Heading to a car. I'll tail them." Jake set the phone down, his hand steady but his mind racing. He didn't shout or curse. Instead, he opened his laptop and searched for a locksmith, finding one with same-day service. He dialed, his voice calm. "I need every lock in my house changed. Front, back, garage, everything. Can you do it tomorrow morning?" "First thing, 8 a.m., the locksmith replied. "Address." Jake gave it, then hung up. He moved to the closet, pulling out Emily's suitcases. He opened them on the floor, his movements deliberate, almost mechanical. Each item he packed, her workout gear, her favorite heels, the scarf she wore on their last anniversary, felt like a step toward a truth he wasn't ready to face but couldn't avoid. He didn't know what Ricardo would find next, but he knew one thing. Whatever Emily thought she could hide, he was about to uncover. The Miami skyline glittered beyond Jake Garcia's window, its lights a stark contrast to the storm brewing inside him. His phone sat on the kitchen counter, silent since Ricardo Mendez's last message. Emily and the stranger were heading to a car after their dinner at Ocean Grill. Jake didn't pace or fidget. He stood still, his architect's mind mapping out the next steps with precision. The life he'd built with Emily, years of shared dreams and sacrifices, was unraveling, and he needed answers to anchor his resolve. At 11:47 p.m., his phone buzzed with Ricardo's update. They're at Palm Bay Hotel. Checked in together. I've got photos and a room number. Want me to keep watching? Jake's chest tightened, but his reply was swift. Get everything. I need it court ready. He set the phone down and opened his laptop, pulling up their joint bank account. Emily had pushed for shared access years ago, her voice soft with trust. We're a team, right? She'd said. Now, that trust felt like a trap. He logged into the bank portal and began setting up a new account, one she'd never touch. Ricardo's next message arrived just past midnight, a file attachment heavy with evidence. Jake opened it, his eyes scanning the images. Emily stepping out of a sleek Mercedes, her hand resting on the man's arm as they entered the hotel's glowing lobby, a time-stamped receipt confirming their check-in. The man's name was Raul Vega, a real estate mogul known for snapping up Miami's waterfront properties. Jake didn't linger on the photos. He forwarded them to a private email he'd created that morning, one Emily didn't know existed. He moved to the bedroom, where her suitcases still lay open from earlier. He resumed packing, his hands steady as he folded her belongings. Yoga mats she used for her fitness classes, a leather jacket she'd bought on their last trip to Key West. Each item was a reminder of the life they'd shared, but he didn't pause to reminisce. His focus was surgical, every action a step toward reclaiming control. By 1 a.m., the suitcases were full, zipped shut, and lined up by the front door like evidence in a case he was building. The locksmith arrived at 8 a.m. sharp, a burly man named Tony with a toolbox and a no-nonsense nod. Changing all the locks? He asked, glancing at the quiet house. Every one, Jake confirmed. Front, back, garage, side door. I want it done today. Tony got to work, the whine of his drill cutting through the morning stillness. Jake stood by, watching as old keys became useless. He didn't explain why, and Tony didn't ask. By 10 a.m., the job was done. Tony handed over a ring of new keys, their metal glinting in the sunlight. No one's getting in without these, he said. Thanks, Jake replied, slipping the keys into his pocket. He carried Emily's suitcases to the porch, arranging them neatly under the awning. The act felt final, like signing a contract. He locked the front door, testing the new key with a satisfying click, then grabbed a small duffel from his closet. He packed only essentials, laptop, a few shirts, his passport, and drove to his friend Carlos's place in Tampa. The hour-long drive gave him time to think, not about Emily's betrayal, but about the mechanics of what came next. Carlos opened his apartment door, his brow furrowing at Jake's expression. You okay, man? Need a couch for a few days, Jake said, dropping his duffel by the door. Carlos didn't push for details, just nodded and pointed to the spare room. Jake settled in, opening his laptop to check Ricardo's final report. It was thorough, timestamps, license plates, even a grainy photo of Raul slipping a room key into his pocket. Jake saved it all, his jaw tight. He wasn't ready to confront Emily, not yet. Confrontation gave her power to twist the narrative. Instead, he'd dismantle her world quietly, piece by piece. He called his bank next, his voice calm as he spoke to a representative. I need to transfer all funds from my joint account to a new one, solo access. Can you make it happen today? The process was quick, ID verified, forms signed digitally. By noon, the money was moved, Emily's access severed. He requested a new card, flagged the old account to block any reversal attempts, and hung up feeling lighter, like he'd shed a weight he hadn't known he was carrying. Ricardo's next call came at 2 p.m. Got more for you, he said. Vega's married. His wife's a lawyer, big name in Coral Gables. Want me to dig into that? Jake hesitated. Not yet. Just keep the file updated. I'll let you know. He hung up and leaned back, staring at the ceiling of Carlos's spare room. The prenup they'd signed 7 years ago flashed in his mind. Emily had teased him about it, her laughter bright as she signed. What? You think I'm after your millions? She joked. He'd laughed too, believing their love was bulletproof. Now, That document was his shield, ensuring she'd walk away with nothing but her mistakes. His phone pinged again, another email from Ricardo. A new photo showed Emily and Raul at breakfast in the hotel's open-air cafe, her smile unguarded, his hand grazing hers. Jake didn't flinch. He forwarded the email to his lawyer, Sofia Alvarez, with a note: "Prepare the divorce petition. Use everything." The chessboard was set, and Jake was playing to win, not with anger, but with the cold precision of a man who'd been underestimated one time too many. Emily Garcia stepped out of a chauffeured sedan, the Miami sun glinting off the pavement as she approached her Coconut Grove home. The afterglow of her night at the Palm Bay Hotel lingered, a mix of thrill and defiance fueling her stride. She expected Jake's car in the driveway, maybe his silhouette through the window, ready for another round of excuses she'd brush off. Instead, the house stood silent, and 4 suitcases sat neatly on the porch like a verdict waiting to be read. Her steps faltered. She fumbled for her keys, jamming one into the lock. It caught, refusing to turn. She tried again, twisting harder, her pulse spiking. "Jake," she called, banging on the door. No answer. The silence felt like a slap. She pulled out her phone, dialing his number. Straight to voicemail. Again, and again. Her fingers trembled as she scrolled to Carlos, Jake's friend in Tampa. The call rang once, then cut off. She tried a mutual friend, Sophia. "Sorry, Em, I'm swamped," came the clipped reply before the line went dead. Emily's breath hitched. She stood on the porch, the suitcases a mocking audience to her growing panic. Neighbors glanced from across the street, their curiosity veiled by casual tasks, watering plants, checking mailboxes. She felt their eyes, the weight of whispers she couldn't hear. Her thumb hovered over Raul Vega's contact. He'd been all charm last night, his promises of a bigger life intoxicating. She dialed. A woman's voice answered, sharp and proprietary. "Who's this?" Emily froze, words caught in her throat. The line went silent. She sank onto the porch steps, clutching her purse. The world felt too loud. Kids shouting on bikes, a lawnmower's drone, the distant hum of traffic. Her home, the one she'd helped paint and furnish, had locked her out. She tried the key again, desperate for a mistake, but the lock held firm. Her chest tightened, a mix of shame and disbelief. She flagged down a passing rideshare, barking the address of a downtown hotel. "The Meridian," she said, her voice brittle. She'd figure this out. She always did. At the hotel, the lobby's polished floors and soft jazz did nothing to calm her. She slid her credit card across the counter, her confidence a fragile mask. The receptionist swiped it, then frowned. "Declined," she said, her tone polite but firm. Emily's stomach dropped. "Try this one," she said, pushing another card forward. Another beep. Another decline. By the third card, the receptionist's eyes softened with pity. "I'm sorry, ma'am. Do you have another payment method?" Emily's face burned. "There's a mistake," she muttered, snatching her cards back. She stormed out, dragging her purse, the weight of humiliation heavier than any suitcase. The driver was gone, so she called another, giving her parents' address in Coral Gables. In the back seat, she stared out the window, the city blurring past. Her phone stayed silent. No text from Jake, no missed calls, nothing to explain the locked door or the dead cards. She pressed her palm to her mouth, stifling a sob. Her parents' house was a low, stucco bungalow, its front path lined with cracked stone. Emily dragged herself to the door, her composure fraying. Her mother, Elena, answered before she could knock, her eyes widening at her daughter's disheveled state. "Mija, what's wrong?" she asked, stepping aside. "Can I stay?" Emily's voice cracked, barely above a whisper. Elena nodded, guiding her inside. Her father, Luis, sat in the living room, a baseball game muted on the TV. He looked up, his gaze heavy with questions he didn't voice. Emily forced a weak smile. "Just a fight with Jake. It'll pass." But her parents' silence said they weren't convinced. She wheeled her purse to the guest room, shutting the door with a soft click. Alone, she sank onto the bed, scrolling through her phone again. No messages. No apologies. Just the void of Jake's absence. She tried Raul again, desperate for his reassurance. The same woman answered, her voice colder now. "Stop calling. He's done with you." The line cut off, leaving Emily staring at the screen, her hands shaking. She opened her banking app, hoping for a glitch, but the joint account showed a zero balance. Her savings, her credit lines, all inaccessible. Panic clawed at her chest. She'd always been the one to charm her way out, to spin a story, to keep control. But now, every door was closing. Her home, her accounts, her lover, her friends. She curled up on the bed, the weight of her choices pressing down. Jake hadn't just walked away. He'd built a wall she couldn't climb. Across town, in Carlos's Tampa apartment, Jake sat at a small table, his laptop open. Ricardo's latest email had arrived. More photos, a hotel receipt, and Raul's business card, carelessly left on a table. Jake saved the files, his expression unreadable. He dialed his lawyer, Sofia Alvarez. "File the petition today," he said. "Attach everything Ricardo sent. The prenup's ironclad, right?" "Bulletproof," Sofia replied. "She won't get a dime. I'll have it in by noon." Jake hung up, leaning back. He didn't feel triumph, only a quiet resolve. Emily had thought she could rewrite their story, but he was the one holding the pen. The next move was hers, but he'd already set the board to ensure she'd lose. Emily Garcia woke to the hum of her parents' air conditioner, the Coral Gables morning heavy with humidity. The guest room bed creaked as she sat up, her phone still clutched from last night's futile attempts to reach Jake. 4 days had passed since she found her suitcases on the porch, her keys useless, her bank accounts drained. Each call to Jake went to voicemail. Each text to friends met with vague excuses. The silence was suffocating, a void where her life used to be. She dragged herself to the kitchen, where her mother, Elena, poured coffee without meeting her eyes. Her father, Luis, sat at the table, flipping through a newspaper, his silence louder than any lecture. Emily sipped the coffee, its bitterness matching her mood. She opened her phone, checking emails, hoping for a sign, anything to explain Jake's disappearance. Nothing. She tried Raul Vega's number again, her last tether to the fantasy she'd chased. A recorded message cut her off. "This number is no longer in service." Her stomach twisted. The doorbell rang, sharp and sudden. Elena answered, returning with 2 manila envelopes, her expression tight. "These came for you," she said, placing them on the table. Emily's hands shook as she reached for the first. The words "petition for divorce" stared back in stark black ink. Jake's name alongside hers, their marriage reduced to legal jargon. Attached was their prenup, its clauses highlighted, a reminder she'd walk away with nothing. No house, no savings, no claim to the life they'd built. Her breath caught, the pages trembling in her grip. She tore open the second envelope, and photos spilled out, glossy and brutal. There she was, laughing with Raul at Ocean Grill, her hand on his as they entered the Palm Bay Hotel, a time-stamped receipt pinned to the images. The evidence was undeniable, each snapshot a nail in the coffin of her denial. Elena gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Luis stood, his chair scraping against the tile, his eyes hard. "Enough, Emily," he said, his voice low but final. "It's not what it looks like," Emily stammered, but the words crumbled under the weight of the truth. Her parents' stares burned, their disappointment sharper than any argument. She clutched the photos, her vision blurring with tears. She'd thought she could charm her way back, spin a story to soften Jake's anger. But this wasn't anger. It was a calculated dismantling of her world. She fled to the guest room, slamming the door. Her phone buzzed, a notification from her fitness studio's landlord, payment overdue. Access suspended until settled. Her business, her pride, was slipping away too. She tried calling her assistant manager, but the line rang out. Desperate, she dialed her best friend, Carla, who'd once cheered her reckless dreams. "I can't talk, Carla said, her voice distant. "You need to sort this out." The call ended, another door shut. Emily sank to the floor, the photos scattered around her. She remembered the early days with Jake, how he'd stayed up late sketching designs while she planned her studio, their dreams intertwined. She'd thought she could have it all, Jake's stability, Raul's excitement, a life without consequences. Now, she had nothing. Her parents' muffled voices drifted through the wall, their words indistinct but heavy with judgment. She pressed her hands to her ears, trying to block it out. Across town, in Tampa, Jake sat in Carlos's apartment, his laptop open to a draft email from his lawyer, Sofia Alvarez. The divorce petition was filed, the evidence airtight. "She won't have a case," Sofia had said. "The prenup's clear, and those photos seal it." Jake nodded, his face calm, but his mind racing. He wasn't destroying Emily out of spite. He was protecting what was left of himself. He'd already transferred his assets to a new account, changed every lock, and moved his essentials to Tampa. His life was a clean slate, ready for rebuilding. His phone pinged with a text from Ricardo Mendez. "Vega's wife knows. She's filing her own divorce. Want me to keep digging?" Jake typed back, "No need. You've done enough." He leaned back, the weight of his decision settling. He'd expected rage, maybe tears, but instead, he felt clarity. Emily had chosen her path, and he'd ensured it led nowhere. Emily, meanwhile, drove back to their Coconut Grove house, a last-ditch hope pushing her forward. The suitcases were gone from the porch, likely taken by a neighbor or a delivery driver. She knocked, her fist pounding against the unyielding door. "Jake, please," she called, her voice breaking. The windows stayed dark, the house as silent as a tomb. She slid to the ground, her back against the door, the reality crashing in. Jake wasn't coming back. Her friends weren't answering. Her lover had vanished. She was alone, stripped of everything she'd taken for granted. Her phone buzzed, a final blow. An email from the bank confirmed her accounts were closed, her access revoked. She stared at the screen, her hands trembling. Jake hadn't just left. He'd erased her from his world with a precision that left no room for negotiation. She hugged her knees, the weight of her mistakes heavier than the Miami heat. Somewhere, Jake was moving forward, and she was left to face the wreckage she'd created. Emily Garcia sat on the guest bed in her parents' Coral Gables bungalow, the divorce papers and incriminating photos spread across the quilt like a scattered puzzle. 5 days had passed since her world imploded, her home locked, her accounts frozen, her calls to Jake unanswered. The silence from her friends and Raul Vega's abrupt absence left her isolated, her once vibrant life reduced to a guest room and her parents' disappointed glances. She stared at the documents, the prenup's highlighted clauses mocking her with their finality. Her phone buzzed, a rare notification. An email from her fitness studio's bank flagged a second missed payment, threatening foreclosure if unpaid within a week. Her business, built on years of hustle and Jake's early support, was crumbling. She tried calling her studio manager, but the number was disconnected. Another call to a former client, someone who'd once praised her classes, went straight to voicemail. The rejection stung, each unanswered call a brick in the wall closing her in. She drove to the studio, hoping to salvage something. The door was locked, a notice taped to the glass, closed for non-payment. A passerby glanced at her, then quickly away, as if her failure was contagious. Emily's hands shook as she peeled the notice off, the paper crinkling in her grip. She'd poured everything into this place, her energy, her identity, and now it was slipping away, just like her marriage. Back at her parents' house, her mother, Elena, knocked softly on the door. "You need to eat," she said, setting a plate of rice and beans on the nightstand. Emily nodded, but the food sat untouched. Luis, her father, lingered in the doorway, his voice gruff. "You can't hide here forever. Figure out your next step." His words weren't cruel, but they carried the weight of expectation. Emily forced a nod, her throat tight, knowing they'd never look at her the same. She opened her laptop, searching for jobs, apartments, anything to claw her way back. Every application felt futile. Her reputation in Miami's tight-knit fitness community was tarnished, whispers of her affair spreading like wildfire. A text from an old colleague confirmed it. "Heard about you and some big shot. People are talking." Emily deleted the message, her chest aching. She'd thought she could outrun the consequences, but they were catching up, relentless and unforgiving. In Tampa, Jake Garcia sat in a small coffee shop, his laptop open to a new project, a beachfront condo design he'd pitched to a client. Carlos, his friend, sat across from him, sipping an espresso. "You heard from her?" Carlos asked, his tone cautious. Jake shook his head, his focus on the screen. "No, and I won't." His voice was steady, no trace of the pain that had gripped him a week ago. He'd spent the morning with his lawyer, Sofia Alvarez, finalizing the divorce filing. The evidence, Ricardo's photos, hotel receipts, and the prenup, ensured a clean break. Emily would get nothing, not a cent of their shared assets, not a piece of the home they'd built. Jake didn't gloat. He simply moved forward, his life a blueprint redrawn without her. His phone pinged with a confirmation from the bank. The new account was fully operational, his finances secure. He'd also sold his old car, trading it for a pickup better suited to his new projects. Each step was deliberate, a reclamation of his future. Sophia had called earlier, her voice brisk. "The court's fast-tracking it. She's been served. It's over." Jake nodded, the news settling like a finalized contract. He wasn't erasing Emily out of spite. He was protecting the life he'd earned. Back in Coral Gables, Emily walked to a nearby park, needing air. She sat on a bench, watching families play soccer, their laughter a stark contrast to her solitude. She opened her phone, scrolling through old photos. Her and Jake at a Key West sunset, grinning at a food truck festival, their hands linked. She'd taken those moments for granted, assuming they'd always be there. Now, they were ghosts, proof of a life she'd thrown away. A notification popped up, a court date for the divorce, set for next month. The reality hit like a punch. She'd have to face Jake, the evidence, the judge. She imagined his calm stare, the one he used when solving a complex design problem, now turned against her. She tried calling him one last time that morning, but the number was blocked. Even her emails bounced back, his silence a fortress she couldn't breach. She returned to her parents' house, where Elena was sorting mail. A letter from a local gym caught Emily's eye, offering a part-time trainer position. It was a step down, far from the empire she'd dreamed of, but it was something. She applied, her fingers hesitating over the submit button. The act felt like surrender, but also a spark of survival. She couldn't undo her choices, but she could start somewhere. Jake, meanwhile, drove to his new office in Tampa, a small space he'd leased to restart his firm. His phone buzzed with a message from Ricardo Mendez. Vega's wife served him papers. He's out of the picture. Jake didn't reply. Raul's downfall was incidental. His focus was his own path. He opened his laptop, sketching a new design, each line a step toward a future unburdened by betrayal. Emily sat alone that night, the divorce papers on her lap. She'd lost her home, her business, her lover, her friends. The cost of her choices was clear, etched in every closed door and unanswered call. Jake hadn't fought her with words or fists. He'd outmaneuvered her with quiet, devastating precision. As she stared at the papers, she understood. This was her reckoning, and she'd face it alone. What would you do if you were Jake, rebuilding after betrayal? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more real-life stories.